Welcome back to the channel. Today begins episode 1 of what I like to call the Rapid Restoration series, featuring this 1966 Ford Mustang convertible. What we're going to be doing to that is detailing the chassis, cleaning the floors, detailing the floors, putting the suspension underneath of it, all properly detailed, engine, transmission, rear, drive shaft, again, all properly detailed, put back into the car. We're going to guide you through it step by step in high-speed motion. Basically, everything that I'm able to do here in my shop, you can do at home using the same materials I use. I'm not going to be using any fancy spray guns, any fancy equipment. It's all designed to be done by you at home. So you may not have a lift. That makes it a heck of a lot easier. If you do have a lift, great. But I'm going to show you ways around that, especially when we do the sandblasting of the car and the underneath. So I hope you enjoy it. Follow along. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you like it even more, feel free to subscribe, and I appreciate it. We're going to begin this assembly by removing the rear from the car. You can see I'm using a Sawzall. That's because pretty much every bolt that was underneath this car was rusted fast. Now that the rear is out of the car, I'm going to use half of my rotisserie that I usually put the cars up on when I do a full chassis restoration, underbody restoration. I'm going to bolt this to the bumper area while I still leave the front suspension on, creating an angle, as you can see there. This will better allow the guy who's going to do the sandblasting to get underneath the car to get at all the areas that need to be blasted, as you can see here. Remember me telling you how rusty everything was? Well, this is what I have to do to get the U-bolts off the rear. What I'm doing here is basically just prepping the rear to take it to the sandblasting so it gets all cleaned up and ready for prime and paint. Stripping all the U-bolts, everything, all the brake lines, pull wheels off, drums, the brakes. And at this time I'm going to pull the axles as well, which you'll see, and I'm going to replace the axle oil seals since they look like they were dripping quite a bit, and then put it all back together so everything's all sealed up and ready to go for blasting. Whether you use this rotisserie like I have, extended jack stands, I've seen even guys use 55-gallon drums to support the back of a car. Key thing is to get it up however you can, high enough so that whoever's doing the sandblasting doesn't hate you and has an easy job to get underneath, get everything as clean as possible. Years ago, I'm kind of estimating probably back in the late 80s, early 90s, this car had some extensive sheet metal work done to it. Floors, rear frame rails in the back. They did a good job, but it was basically the 90s body shop good job. They left some edges that you could see where the panels were replaced. They didn't do a good job of really cleaning things up. They used seam sealer to hide a lot of it, which it did, and kept everything sealed and free from rust, but at this point We got all the seam sealer out from those seams. I'm going through tack welding in certain areas that need to be welded, grinding everything smooth, and then we're going to finish it off with proper body working of the floors to smooth everything out so it has a nice fit and finish when you look at the car from underneath. After all the cleanup work is done, I'm going to follow up behind it with spot priming those areas that I body worked. Now that the basic floor work is finished, I'm moving on to the front end. We're pulling everything out of here. All the suspension components are coming out. Some will be refurbished, others will just be replaced. The power steering control valve, the power steering ram, and all those lines associated with that will all be replaced because they're all very prone to leakage. And since we're at it, the car will be upgraded to disc brakes. And through the magic of YouTube, dirty rear gets loaded up and a clean rear gets unloaded. I'm going to hit the rear with self-etching primer in preparation for paint. Now I'm going to start putting in the seam sealer into all the areas where it was taken out by the sandblasting. There's a lot of patch panels in different areas in the back, and those all need to be sealed back up so no moisture gets in between them and the old panels. Good quality seam sealer will take care of that. With all the seam sealer applied and dried, we're now ready to start hitting the underside of the car with the correct looking, but not perfect, store-bought Duplicolor red oxide sandable primer. Moving to the front of the car, start focusing on one of my least favorite areas to work on, that's the engine compartment. especially when I have to hand sand everything like I'm doing here. After everything is sanded, I'll come in and spot prime, then wipe it down again and start laying the first coat of the color. I'll sand that, lay a second coat of color, sand that, and lay a third coat of color. And that should be pretty good and looking pretty smooth. Now I'll apply more seam sealer on the pinch weld where it meets the floor, and then come in and undercoat the wheel wells with a nice texture, just like Ford would have done it. Once you applied the undercoat and all the primer, it should look something like this. Then I follow up from the edge and shoot in body color from the rocker just to mimic the overspray that Ford would have left behind on the assembly line. Along the floor pan, into the wheel well, on the frame rail, a little bit of overspray filtering down from when they painted the trunk along the assembly line. Over into the other frame rail, again, you can see where it came up along the frame rail, into the wheel well, and down along the rocker into the floor pan just like the other side. Thank you for watching episode 1 on the Rapid Restoration series on this 66 Ford Mustang convertible. Stay tuned, episode 2 is coming up.